Excellent. Yeah, grab a seat. It's great to be here this morning. Hopefully you're having fun. Hopefully that's encouraged you or inspired you or done something in you this morning. I absolutely love baptisms. But I want to ask you a question which might seem a bit random, but no more random than a panda covered in shaving foam, so that's all right. What is the most powerful object in the world? What's the most powerful object in the world? What do you think? Shout it out. Object. What's the most powerful object in the world? I can't. You have to talk. The what? A nuclear bomb. Okay, there you go. That is very powerful. Yeah, but it's not quite. But it might be. Keep shouting. Let me let you out of your misery, because actually there is only one answer to this question. This is true. Well, it's not. It's just subjective. This is what I think. The most powerful object, I think, in the world is this. It's a key. That was an anticlimax, wasn't it? You're like, well, really? But just think about it. What can you do with a key? Well, you can unlock doors and all those things. But with a key, you can drive a car. You can move a lorry. You can move like a big, massive cruise liner. You can even fly a plane, move a plane with a key. And just imagine, this is a new TV drama that they need to invent. All of the keys suddenly disappear. I mean, that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? We have the thing like power going out and all that sort of stuff. I mean, that's an old hat. But imagine a world where instantly all of the keys disappeared. We'd be like stuffed, wouldn't we? The impact that would have. You're looking at me like I've absolutely lost it. But that's okay. Hold that thought. And we'll circle back to that. We're here today because we're celebrating baptisms. And I always find baptisms so encouraging. I find them so inspiring. I also find them challenging when I hear stories of how people are putting their faith and choosing to publicly stand up in front of their friends and their families and a bunch of strangers as well and say, you know, I believe in Jesus and I want to live my life, the rest of my life, for him, in reference to him, putting him at the center of who I am, of what I think, of what I say, and what I do. I find it so inspiring just to hear those stories. And these three brave young people today have just encouraged me, they've inspired me, and they've challenged me, and I hope they've done that for you as well. But there's something else about each of their stories that inspires me, and Dan alluded to it as well, is that normally every Sunday morning they're not here, they're not in this room, they're upstairs because they're wanting to pour into the next generation that are coming after them and help kids that are younger than them discover a faith of their own, and just the faith that they've discovered for themselves and realize, you know, this isn't my parents' faith, it's not my youth leaders' faith, this is my faith. They're wanting to help these other kids discover that for themselves and actually realize that they too can know Jesus as their friend and that they can discover faith for themselves. And maybe you've heard those stories and you've seen what they've done, you've seen the courage and the faith that they have in Jesus. And maybe you say to yourself something like this: I could never do that. I could never stand on a stage and I could never publicly admit my faith in Jesus. Or maybe there's something else in the way that other people who follow Jesus live their lives and how they seem to actually have this confidence as they go through life, even when everything is coming crashing down around them, that their faith in Jesus is still strong and they're still stable in the midst of that. And maybe you see how other people who follow Jesus do that, how they go about that, and you say the same question: well, I could never do that. I could never be like that. Maybe there's other aspects in your life where you say this statement. Maybe there's things, obstacles in your life. Maybe there's habits that you need to sort of overcome. Maybe there's something that needs confronting. Maybe there's a friend or a colleague that you need to stand up to because actually the way that they're doing something isn't right, and you think, I should say something about that. I should stand up to that. And you find yourself saying, well, I could never do that. You know, Jesus said something quite interesting. Jesus said something amazing, actually, about this. And a guy called Matthew recorded this for us. At the beginning of the New Testament, that's the second part of the Bible. The Old Testament is all the stuff sort of before Jesus. The New Testament is the stuff after Jesus. And we've got these, what we call Gospels. They're written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And they're biographical accounts of the life of Jesus. And Matthew was an eyewitness. He was there when Jesus did a lot of the things that Jesus did, and he heard a lot of things that Jesus said. And Matthew records something that Jesus was saying at like a conversation, a thing that Jesus had with his disciples. And so let's just take a look. It says this: Then the disciples came to Jesus in private and they asked him, why couldn't we do this? Now, the context of this is Jesus has asked them to go out and do something. He's instructed them to do something, and they came across something that they couldn't do. What that is isn't really important right now, but the point is Jesus had asked them to do something, and what he'd asked them to do was important, but it was something that was quite big. It was more than, wash the dishes or fix the car. It was something that is actually miraculous. It was something that if Jesus asked us to do it, we would say, I could never do that. And so this is the context. Jesus had sent them out and they came across this thing, they couldn't do it, and they came back to Jesus and says, well, why couldn't we do this? We were doing this and we're doing that, but we couldn't do that. Why is that? And Jesus replied in this way. He said, because you have so little faith. Faith is a big deal. Faith is important. When we have faith, things happen that otherwise wouldn't happen if we didn't have faith. And, let's take this out of a religious context. If you're into sport, you know the impact or the power that faith has. Top athletes, top sports people need to have confidence. They need to have faith in themselves, but they also need to have confidence. They need to have faith in their team. And, teams or athletes that lose their faith, that lose their confidence in themselves or lose their faith or lose their confidence in their teammate means that they're not able to perform to their full potential. And actually you see that at top sports teams, that actually just that loss of faith, just a tiny loss of faith actually has a huge impact. And a team that used to be great are not so good anymore because they're not reaching their full potential. They're not reaching their full limit. Now, that's not what Jesus is talking about here. Having confidence in ourselves, having faith in ourselves or faith in the people around us is important, but that's not what Jesus is talking about here. He's talking about having faith in him. He's saying, you don't have enough faith in me to be able to do these things. And that leaves me with a question. Well, how much faith is enough? And actually, do I have enough faith? Well, let's carry on and see what Jesus says into this. He says this: truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. Now, that's some statement that Jesus says. If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain to move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. Now, Jesus often uses extreme language throughout the Gospels to make an extreme point. He's trying to get people's attention. And he's talking about, actually, you just need a tiny bit of faith, and actually something amazing can happen. And often, in life, there's obstacles that stand in our way. There's things that sort of stop us from being the person that we want to be or doing the things that we know we should do. And maybe that's some of the stuff that we've seen today, and that causes us to say, well, I could never do that. And those obstacles seem like mountains. They're huge. How can I get past that? How can I get around that? How can I overcome that? And Jesus is speaking into it. He's saying, faith moves these mountains. Faith moves those obstacles. So I wonder what those obstacles are for you. Maybe baptism is an obstacle for you. Maybe baptism is a mountain for you. You're someone who believes in Jesus. You're a follower of Jesus, but you've not followed through on that decision to actually be baptized. You've not actually been obedient to Jesus, who said, look, believe in me and be baptized. And there might be loads of questions around that. There might be loads of reasons why. Maybe it's actually that public declaration that's putting you off. Maybe it's water, and the fear of water is something that's putting you off. And it's an obstacle that stands in the way. That it's a mountain. And Jesus says, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can shift that mountain. But maybe it's something else. Maybe actually for you, the mountain is not this step of being baptized. It's this step of do I actually believe? There's stuff in there that seems to resonate, and there's stuff that seems to ring true, but I have so many questions. Is Jesus really the Son of God? Did Jesus really die and come back to life again? That doesn't happen. That's not a normal thing. And maybe actually that step of choosing to believe in Jesus, or choosing to follow Jesus, or even choosing to explore it and be curious about it, seems like a mountain, seems like an obstacle that's in your way. What will people say? What will people think? What will my friends or my husband or my wife or my parents or my siblings say if I start trying to explore faith or become curious about faith? Whatever it is, we have these mountains that stand in the way. And Jesus says, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. And a mustard seed, I don't know if you know much about mustard seeds, but they are tiny. I've got an image of a mustard seed on the screen, and I've got some mustard seeds in my hand. You probably can't see it very well, but they are tiny little seeds. They're the smallest of seeds. And Jesus says, if your faith is as small as this, if your faith is tiny, just as small as a mustard seed, you can move mountains. And the thing that Jesus is saying is, it's not the size of your faith that matters, it's where you place your faith. See, a mustard seed is tiny. It's the smallest of the seeds, but it grows into the biggest of the trees. This is a mustard tree. Get your head around that. This tiny little seed grows into that. How does that happen? Now, I'm sure somebody could explain that to me, and I can't quite fathom that. I don't understand that. But what I do know is that this seed will not grow into that tree if the seed stays in the packet or if it stays in your hand. You have to plant the seed in the soil for the magic to happen. You have to plant the seed in the soil for the miraculous to happen. So it's not the size of your faith that's important. It's where you place it that's important. The limit of your faith is the limit of whatever it is that you're putting your faith in. So a question that we need to ask is, where is my faith? If you're a sports person and you put your faith in yourself or in your sports team, well, that's a good thing to do. But the limit of your faith is the limit of your ability, or the limit of the ability of your friends or your sports team. If you put your faith in your friends, well, okay, that's a good thing to do. We should do that. But the limit of our faith is the limit of our friends. We only go as far as they can take us. If you put your faith in your bank balance or your ability to earn, the limit of your faith will be how much money you can earn or how much money you can have in your bank balance. You get the point. And Jesus is not saying, no, we shouldn't have faith in these things, but he's saying actually the important part of your faith about who you are, what shapes you and what defines you, what gives you your identity, he's saying put that faith in me. Why does he say that? Well, because he is limitless. That's why he makes this bold statement about moving mountains, about nothing being possible to us, because nothing is impossible to him. And he says, when you put your faith in me, these mountains that stand before you will move. See, the thing about faith is a key. Faith is the key. When you put your faith in something that is right, when you put your faith in the right place, it unlocks something that otherwise would have stayed locked. So I think we're left, or I'm certainly left, with these two questions. What is my mountain? What is the thing that is standing in front of me? What is the thing that's standing in the way? What is the thing that seems impossible to move? And the second question is, where's my faith? It's not about how much faith you have, it's about where you place your faith, where you're planting your faith. Jesus invites us to put our faith in him, and when we do that, something amazing happens. We're going to get the band back up on stage as we wrap up our time together. But just think about that. I wonder what that's like for you. I wonder what those things that are going through your head. What's that stuff that's standing in the way, that's stopping you from being the person that you're created to be? Maybe what's the stuff that's standing you doing what these brave young people have done this morning and actually publicly declaring your faith in Jesus? What's the stuff that's standing in the way of you choosing to explore faith and actually check out whether actually actually what Josh and what Matty and what Izzy believes is real, or are they just deluded? What's stopping you actually explore that and ask those questions for yourself? And if you're a follower of Jesus, maybe you've done that. What's stopping you from taking that next step and actually choosing to continually put your faith in him and move those mountains? We're going to sing one last song together. Why don't we stand to our feet? Let me pray for us. Father God, I thank you for that visual image of faith as small as a mustard seed. And Lord, when I think things are dependent on me to shift mountains, it's impossible. I could never do that. Those things that stand in my way of being the person that you've created me to be, sometimes, Lord, feels overwhelming. I can't do it. But I thank you that you said, if I just place a tiny amount of faith in you, nothing will be impossible for me. Help me to figure that out. Help us to figure that out and understand what that means. Help us to know what that mountain is that's in front of us. And give us the courage to choose to put our faith in you and see things unlocked. Bless us, Lord, I pray. Amen.